Large pieces of land are always considered very important in terms of the fate of wars. Contrary to the general belief, the small pieces of land can also change the fate of the wars. For example, in the war between Russia and Ukraine, cities such as Bakhmut also took an important place in the fate of the war, despite the fact that they were small territories. In recent days, the Ukrainian Armed Forces have carried out operations at the very critical points and liberated several regions under the control of the Russian army from Russian occupation. Of course, these operations were not easy. Both armies fought fearlessly in these operations, which covered a long period of time. But at the end of the day, the Ukrainian Armed Forces were the winners of the struggle. The echo of the developments in the Urozhaine and Robotyne continues. So, what is the importance of these small territories in terms of the fate of the war? Let's take a look at the importance of these small regions with a map. As the pioneer, we are trying to convey to you every details about the confliction between the Russian army and the Ukrainian army. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and open notifications so as not to miss our daily map analysis reports and reports on the agenda. I'm also reading all the comments you've made. Please share your content ideas with me in the comments. The Pioneer reports. First of all, let's see the Zaporizhzhia front line on the map from a wide angle. As you can see, this front line extends from Vasilivka to Wuhldar. That is, it is represented the Zaporizhzhian front line to the distance of about 151 kilometers. As you will remember from our previous reports, the counterattack of the Ukrainian Armed Forces was largely continuing on the front line. In other words, the operations of the Ukrainian army aimed at repelling Russian troops are continuing along the 151 kilometers. The Ukrainian army has made quite significant gains in the region since launching a counteroffensive. So far, the Ukrainian army, together with Urozhaine, has liberated on the area about 39 square kilometers from the Russian occupation. We see that the liberated areas are represented on the map with blue color during the counterattack operations. Let's start with the Urozhaine region first. First of all, I want to show you this region accompanied by a topographical map. As you can see, the region does not have a rugged terrain. We are examining a region consisting mostly of wide plains. Therefore, this region does not offer the opportunity of a natural defense line in both armies. Therefore, it is a great disadvantage that the side that is in the judge of this region is in defense positions. The Russian troops were also faced with this disadvantage. Taking into account this advantage, the armed forces of Ukraine managed to liberate the Urozhaine region from Russian occupation. However, we cannot mention that the Ukrainian troops have the same disadvantage. As you know, Russian troops retreated to Urozhaine first during the process that started with the Ukrainian army's attacks on the Stormyursk. Later, with the liberation of Urozhaine by Ukrainian army, the Russian troops withdrew to the south of Urozhaine region. During this whole process, the Russian troops suffered very heavy losses. Therefore, I can say that it is unlikely that Russian troops in the region will launch a new attack. In other words, the disadvantage that the region has for this defense side disappears naturally. In order for Russian troops to launch a new offensive, a large number of Russian reinforcements must arrive in the region. However, for the moment, it does not seem possible that this will happen. Let's look at Rzhivka, located south of Urozhaine. As you can see on the map, the highway passing through Rzhivka extends to Mariupol. As you know, Mariupol is one of the important supply points of the Russian army. Mariupol, located quite close to Russian mainland, was constantly supported by supply shipments. Russian shipments arriving in the region were also being delivered to Russian troops on the front line through many points, especially Rzhivka. However, the successful attacks of Ukrainian artillery units have also greatly damaged the supply routes. Therefore, it seems unlikely that Russian troops in the region will be reinforced with new shipments. The Russian troops stations in and around the Urozhaine region, which you can see on the map, have suffered quite heavy losses since the beginning of the clashes. Due to these losses, it seems unlikely that Russian troops will carry out new attacks. At the same time, it is possible to state that Russian troops will not be able to hold on to positions in the Urozhaine region for a long time. Let's continue with Robotyne. Recently, we mentioned that Ukrainian Armed Forces have begun to establish dominance in the north neighborhood of Robotyne. As you remember, the war strategy of the Ukrainian army here has been on the agenda recently. The Ukrainian army was planning to squeeze the Russian troops stationed in Robotyne through the Verbov line. According to recent reports, the Ukrainian army has been largely successful in the strategy. Several sources have recently announced that the Ukrainian army had made limited gains on the Verbov line. Now let's look at distance between Verbov and Robotyne on the map. As you can see, Verbov is located about 13 kilometers from Robotyne. Accompanied by the timeline, we also see that the attacks of the Ukrainian army forces the Russian troops located at the points near the Verbov line to retreat. So why are Robotyne and Urozhaine important? Actually, we are talking about quite small areas, but the panic that the Russian sources are experiencing about these regions also raises many questions about these regions. First of all, I have to say that developments in these regions are really scares the Russian sources, because the Ukrainian army is conducting a deep offensive process on the Zaporizhian front line. At the end of the offensive process, Berdyansk and Mariupol are located. As you can see on the map, the Robotyne region is located about 108 kilometers from Berdyansk. This distance is quite long, but it is not a distance that cannot be exceeded. By capturing the Robotyne region, the Ukrainian army wants to achieve an important touchstone in the process of advancing to Berdyansk. In the same way, let's take a look at the distance between Urozhaine and Mariupol. As you can see, the distance between Urozhaine and Mariupol is also about 91 kilometers. We also see that there is a very important line here to reach Mariupol. On the other hand, every success achieved on the Zaporizhian front line is also a major threat to the Russian positions behind the front line. As you know, the Ukrainian Armed Forces are targeting the positions of Russian troops behind the front line with the Storm Shadow missiles. In order for Russian positions behind the front line to come within range of short-range missiles, the Ukrainian army needs to advance in the region. At the same time, the Ukrainian army is also approaching the Russian main supply lines, capturing areas such as Urozhaine and Robotyne. Thanks to this, Russian troops are experiencing major supply shortage at many points, especially on the Zaporizhia front line. It seems that small regions such as Urozhaine and Robotyne will be on our agenda more in later days of the war. At least, we can say that the panic that appeared in Russian sources confirms this claim. And what do you think? Do you think the small territories will affect the fate of the war? What are your ideas about panic experienced by Russian sources? Do you think that the Ukrainian army will advance further along the Zaporizhian front line? Mention it in the comments. I'm reading and caring about all your comments.